Hello and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to show you how I drew this jack-o'-lantern on Pastelmat. Now this is a little piece of Pastelmat. This is about a 5x7 and I'm using mostly my polychromos pencils for this piece, and I will explain a little further in the video why that is. I will also have all of the supplies that I'm using listed in the description down below. And if you're looking for the full real-time tutorial, that's available over on my Patreon. So let's get right into the video. So I'm starting here with my lightest yellow from the Polychromos set, and I'm picking a few areas where I want it to be the brightest that I'm going to be coloring around, and I'll come back over top with some white here afterwards. Now, I've picked the Polychromos pencils for this paper. Usually I would choose my wax-based pencils, but those work better on hot pressed paper, especially when I'm blending out with odorless mineral spirits. And with this paper, I found that the Polychromos blend out a little bit better with the mineral spirits. Now you'll see here I am just laying a little bit of that white color over top. So after my experimentation, I decided to stick with the polychromos. I do add in a few wax-based pencils here and there, but I'm using mainly the polychromos. Now I'm coming in with that second yellow-orange color, and I'm looking at the reference photo here, and I can see some areas where you can see the inside of the pumpkin skin, so this is where I'm putting that color in. And now I'm going with a little bit of a darker orange from the polychromos. And again, everywhere I put these pencils, I'm putting the next color a little bit less. So I want it darker towards the edges and then lighter in the middle, because that's where the light is coming from inside of our pumpkin. Now I'm going with a darker orange, and I'm going just around the outsides of the eyes, the nose, and the mouth, where you can see a little bit of the skin. It's a little bit more of a reddish orange, so I will come back on top with a little bit more of a reddish brown color to tint this. Now, if you are following along, I will have all of the supplies and the colors that I used listed down below in the description. And if you're interested in the line art, I have that available over on my Patreon, as well as all of my real-time tutorials. Now this is where I'm coming in with that reddish brown color. And your colors don't have to be exact, just pick something that's close enough. A little bit of a darker red that has a bit of brown in it will do just fine. And I'm just putting this right over top of where I put that dark orange color. Now when we go ahead to blend this out, it will blend a little bit, so I will come back and kind of touch it up and darken it up at the end. Now this is where I'm coming in with my odorless mineral spirits. Now I like to use Gamsol, but there's different brands out there like the Mona Lisa. They all work the same. Now these Faber Castell Polychromos pencils blended out so smoothly. They worked really well on this paper, actually. Better than my wax-based pencils when I were trying them out. Those, you had to put down quite a lot of layers, but then when you layered the wax-based pencils up too much, it would almost like gunk up on the paper. But the polychromos pencils, because they're a harder lead, they laid down very smoothly. And when I blended them out, they were so smooth, they almost blend out like paint. You'll see later on when I'm blending out the pumpkin, the pigment almost starts to move around because I have so much pencil on the paper, because I'm used to having to lay down so much pencil when you're working on a hot pressed paper. Now I'm coming back in with that first light yellow pencil, and I'm just placing in where I want the lightest areas to be at the very top of the pumpkin. And then I'm coming back in with that middle orange color. And I'm sort of going around the areas that I just put in. I want to keep that brightness there. So I'm not going to cover up all of the yellow areas. And then I'm going to use this color to pretty much color in most of the pumpkin, just so we have a really nice orange base layer. Now I'm coming in with a little bit of a darker pencil. This is more of like a brown orange color, and I'm just lining where the folds in the pumpkin go. And this is just to help so I don't lose those areas once I start getting some darker colors in here. Again, going back with that middle orange color. Now you'll notice I'm being quite messy when I'm laying this pencil on this paper, and it's only because they do blend out so smoothly with the OMS. So if you're working on a hot pressed watercolor paper or any kind of smooth colored pencil paper, I would definitely go in your little tiny tighter circle strokes and make this a little bit neater. But I'm able to get away with this messiness just because these pencils do work well on this paper, I have to say. So I'm going in with that darkest orange pencil here, and I'm getting some of these brighter areas where we can see shining through on the pumpkin. Now around all those areas, I'm going to make dark. So I want to make sure I keep the light areas bright. And I'm coming back in with that browny orange color and just defining those grooves within the pumpkin a little bit better. And now this is the dark brownish red color, and I'm using this to just darken up the bottom side of the pumpkin. So my goal for the bottom of the pumpkin, I want to sort of fade into the foreground. So I've got to put enough layers down, and I do this a couple of times where I'll do some dark pencils, blend it out, do some more and blend it out. But I really want the bottom of the pumpkin to kind of fade into the ground, and I'm going to be doing the leaves that I have in the ground a little bit more loose, and that way the top of the pumpkin and the face in the background kind of shines through a little bit more, I think, in this piece. So this is just the same color that I'm using all over the pumpkin, so I'm just going to go ahead and speed this up because it's a little bit more repetitive. I'm just filling in the whole pumpkin here with that brownie orange color. And then with that reddish, dark red brown color. Now I'm coming in with my Mars Black. I've chose Mars Black to do some of the darker areas because it's a little bit more of a warmer black. So I think that goes nicely with the pumpkin. Now again, you can see this is where I'm blending out with my odorless mineral spirits, and how this pencil just smooths right out. It looks so smooth, almost like paint. It almost feels like you're painting, and you can see it's actually picking up pigment because I might even have a little bit too much pencil on the paper. I probably could have done less layers at this point, but I'm really impressed with how they're layering up and blending out on this paper so far. So I'm just going to speed through this section again because it's just the blending out process. Now, you do want to give the paper enough time to dry before you go back to that same area. On a smooth paper, I would say 15 minutes, you're probably good to go back. On this paper, because it's a little bit more absorbent, I would wait closer to a half hour before you would go back and put colored pencil over top of those areas. Now for the stem of the pumpkin, I'm coming in with the same colors I've used in the pumpkin. So I'm starting off with that bright yellow, and then I'm coming in with a couple of orange colors here. And I want to get a bit of a yellowy orange glow on the stem, and I'm going to have some blue colors in there. Because I'm going to have blue and orange in the background, I want that to kind of reflect off the stem. Now I'm coming in with this really bright light aqua. Now this is a light fast pencil, which is a wax-based pencil, but it just happens to be the color that I want, so that's why I'm choosing this pencil. It still blends out just fine on this paper, but I think I do prefer the polychromos pencils on this paper. And I'm coming in with a little bit of a brighter aqua teal color and then a little bit of a darker teal color. So I'm just starting to build up from my lightest areas to my shadows. And I've got to watch the grooves in the pumpkin because I want the darkest shadow to be in the darkest area of the groove, so you can see everywhere I'm putting the next darkest color, I'm not putting it quite as far as the first color, if that makes sense. So I've still got some light areas and then a little bit darker, and then the darkest is where the groove is. And I'm coming in with my dark indigo pencil here, and this is going to be some of my darkest areas in this stem. Now again, I will come back and add some colors in again once we've blended. And that's one of the nice things about using odorless mineral spirits. It really pushes the colored pencil into the tooth of the paper, so you're able to get a lot more layers on it than if you were just layering up the pencil on itself. After a while it would get waxy and you're not able to get layers over top. But using this, even on hot pressed watercolor paper or whatever paper you're using, it pushes that pencil into the tooth of the paper, so it gets rid of that graininess. And I like that because I like a little bit more of a smooth look in my colored pencil pieces. But I'm also able to come back and get some layers on top and even get some highlights, some lighter colors. Now, I will say I'm able to get some really nice highlights on this paper, but I can still do it a little bit on hot press watercolor paper. And there's ways to get around it too. Now, again, I'm coming in with that lightest yellow color, and I'm just creating some little circle areas in the background. I don't want these circles to be quite big because I'm going to come around them with some orange. So I'm just sort of mapping out where I want my brighter circles to be. And again, I'm just going to go ahead and speed this up just because it's the same process over and over. So let me know if you still like seeing what I'm doing sped up, or if you'd rather it just cut to the next section of this video where we're doing the orange now here. So I'm taking that dark orange pencil and I'm just going right around all of my little yellow circles here. Now I'm taking that light aqua color, so this is the lightest color I used in the stem, and I want to create some little circles in the blue area, but I don't want them to stand out like the orange ones. So you're going to see how I'm going to blend and layer over top of these ones, but it will still show a lighter area. So I'm just creating some circles randomly with this color as well. Now I'm taking that darker teal color and I'm just going to go around all of the little circles here, so around all of the orange circles and the blue circles, and just really fill in the background with this color. Now I'm trying to go around the pumpkin quite carefully just because our background color is going to be a little bit darker. So you'll see I'm kind of lining up against the pumpkin and then I color out from there. But you can see just from one quick layer, these pencils do cover on Pastelmat pretty nicely. Now I'm coming in with that dark indigo color, and I'm not going to be covering up all of the areas where I just put this teal color in. I'm going to sort of make some patches of this color here and there and leave some of that teal showing through. And now I'm just taking that darkest orange color and I'm coming in and I'm going to start filling in the leaves down at the bottom. Now, I don't want the leaves to be super defined, like I said, because I want the bottom area to kind of just fade right out. So I'm going to end up making them more like little blobby leaf shapes. But you can certainly come in and draw defined little veins in each little leaf. And just define them a little bit more if you'd like. But I didn't want the foreground to distract from the pumpkin itself. So I'm coming in with that brownie orange color. And again, I'm just making some little darker areas in these leaves because I do want some structure in there, but not a whole lot. And then I'm coming in with that dark reddish brown color, and I'm just adding a few little dark areas right at the bottom of the leaves just to kind of define them just a little bit more. And then we're coming in with our odorless mineral spirits and we're just going to give them a quick blend. Now I'm starting to blend out the background. So I'm starting with the orange circles. Now this is the first layer. I am going to come back on top with another layer. So I'm not too worried if they blend out and muddy up a little bit. And I actually kind of go over them with a little bit of the blue afterwards to kind of tone them down a little bit. And then I go through and do all of the little light circles. And then as I start blending out the blue in the background, you'll see how I'm taking what color is on my brush and I'm going over those little blue circles. And that's how I'm toning them down, just with whatever colored pencil I pick up from the paper. And I'm trying to be somewhat careful around the little orange circles because I don't want to cover them completely. But you'll see I come back and I sort of smooth them out a little bit, and it just pushes them into the background a little bit more. But once we come in with our second layer, they will just pop back out because like I said, the pencils just layer really well on this paper. Now I'm coming in with a brownie orange color, a little bit lighter than I was using before, and I'm just getting a little bit of ground texture in here. And this is the darker brownie orange color. Let me know if you like me calling out the colors instead of the numbers because not everybody has the same pencil. So I find it easier to say if I'm using, a yellow, a dark orange, a light orange. So let me know in the comments below which way you prefer it because I could call out the pencil number as well. But I'm coming back in with that dark reddish brown color here and I'm just looking at the darkest areas at this point. And like I said, I really want the bottom of the pumpkin to kind of fade into the ground area. So I'm really working on darkening this up. So I'm using the Mars Black for this. getting some of my darkest areas right down at the bottom. And being able to get some of our darker areas in with the pumpkin is going to make the lighter areas show brighter as well. So if you're really having a hard time getting your light areas to show as light as you want, you might need to make whatever's next to it darker, and that'll make it look brighter. Again, just blending everything out another time. Now at this point, I was noticing that the colored pencil was moving a little bit more. So that means I just have so many layers down at this point. I really don't need a whole lot of the odorless mineral spirits on my brush. So you really want to just take a little tiny bit and dab it off really, really well. Here I'm taking my Mars Black and I'm doing some little squiggles and some little dots just to get some texture here in the ground area. And I'll lightly blend this out after, but I just want to have a little bit of that texture there. So you'll see I'm not blending this side to side. I'm just dabbing the brush on it just to sort of soften it out a little bit. And then again, I'm blending out those darkest areas at the bottom, and I'm starting to get that look where you can see the pumpkins blending right into the ground. And those dark areas are really making the light areas show. Now I'm coming right over top of all the colors that I used at the beginning. So again, I'm putting that white in the whitest areas, the yellow, the orange, just coming over top, and anywhere that I feel like it needs to be a little brighter or a little bit darker, like the areas around the eyes and the nose and the mouth, where I put that orange color and that dark brown red color. I'm doing that again just because I feel like when I was blending everything out, I kind of lost those colors a little bit. So I am speeding through this part a little bit more, but it's because it's the exact same thing that we did at the beginning. Again, using that dark orange color anywhere that I really want the pumpkin to show that brightness. Now I'm taking that light aqua color, and I thought it would be really cool to have some of these blue highlights on the pumpkin. So in the photo, it's actually some peaches and some yellows, like very light cream colors that are the highlights. But I wanted to use this aqua color because our background's more blue. And I really like how this turned out. Now I have it a little bit softer here, but I will come back at the very end and kind of punch up those highlights a little bit, and I like it even more. And again, I'm coming back with all those same colors in the stem. So anywhere after I blended it out, I feel like I need more, I just come back and add more. And again, I'm going over the background, exact same colors, exact same order. I'm just coming over top, and I'm not going to blend this layer out. I felt like it was smooth enough, but again, I'm doing the yellow, the orange, the light aqua, the teal, the indigo, and I really like how the background turned out. So I'm quite happy with that, because sometimes it can take, you know, 2, 3, maybe even 4 layers of pencil to get a background very smooth. Now I can still tell there's a bit of texture in the background, but it's definitely a lot faster than it would be on hot pressed paper. Now here I'm taking off the tape in the background, and one thing I will note, as you see me pointing out, the OMS did cause some of the pencil to kind of go underneath the tape and bleed out a little bit. So be aware of that. I had it pretty much on all of the corners, maybe not, no, I think even on the bottom. So I think all 4 um, parts of this picture, I had some sort of pencil leak out underneath the tape. Now, if you weren't blending it with odorless mineral spirits, obviously that wouldn't happen. So just keep that in mind. And here you see I'm coming back with that light aqua and just really punching up these highlights. So I'm actually really pleased with how this piece turned out for a first time using Pastelmat. I really love how I can take this light blue color and come on top of these darker orange colors. Yeah, so I really like this, and thank you so much for watching. And as always, I will see you in the next video. Bye.